But when our eyes met, he gave me a friendly wave. I was mingled with the other Mavar first. I began drifting between the clusters of Mavar, looking for a conversation to step into. Nobody seemed to know what to make of me, and most of the looks I got were confused, curious, or downright suspicious. For my first impression on them, I decided to act warm and friendly. I wanted to put my best foot forward, so I made sure to act amicable and easygoing. If anything, the Mavar seemed surprised that I wasn't antagonizing them, as if my affiliation with Charisse implied that I wanted to burn the house down. As the night went on, their wariness around me didn't exactly fade away, but some of them started opening up, including me little by little in their discussions. By the time I'd spoken with most of the vampires who seemed to be willing to chat, I felt like I knew the clan a little better. They were about as diverse a group as any I'd ever seen, and beyond their shared house, there was one thing that united them: their respect for Randall. All of the Mavar obviously admired him, and I heard stories about how he'd helped so-and-so's brother or inspired somebody to ditch their evil boss and become a free spirit. Some of their tales seemed too heroic and exaggerated to be true, but the Mavar obviously believed them. And it seemed like that belief gave them all confidence. Let's talk to Randall. Hey dude. As I approached Randall and his group, he murmured something quickly to them, then slipped out of the circle. Hey Valkii, glad you could make it out. This is your first time here, right? How are you liking it so far? I love it. Seeing so many vampires just hanging out together is nice. Yeah, I know what you mean. Warms my dead little heart. Bet you can't imagine Queen Bitch and the Ascari partying like this, right? Fuck, what would they even do? Play bingo and drink club soda? He let out a snort of laughter, shaking his head. Yes, everyone apart from your group is so stereotypical. Well, now that you're here, you got any questions about me or the vamp life? There's no sucking blood for dummies guide out there or anything, but hey, maybe I can help you out somehow. As you can tell, already done all of this. Could you tell me about the Mavar? Well, we probably have some kind of deep, complicated history that I don't know jack shit about. We do get around though: medieval factions, secret societies, fighting rings, mafia gangs. A lot of what you've read about in textbooks probably had Mavar involved somewhere. He shrugged, his gaze briefly drifting around the living room. As society changes, so do we. So do all vampires. The big difference between us and the rest is, well, beyond enhanced senses and strength and shit, that we're usually always part of a group. Lone Mavar, they're pretty rare. Couldn't really tell you why. Instinct, I guess. A need to be a part of something bigger. Sorry kid, that's about all I got. How do you cope with being a vampire? Cope? You make it sound like it's a shitty life. Ever since I became a vampire, I've never looked back. Best thing that ever happened to me. So I don't cope, I try to enjoy every night. Do you think there's an ideal ruling system for vampires? And here's where we disagree. Yeah, where everybody rules themselves. See, that's just not how things work, Randall. I appreciate the sentiment, but it's just not how things work. Of course, you're going to have shitty people doing shitty things, but if they step on someone's toes and there's no law against delivering justice, things work out. We're vampires. We've all got ways to survive. Somebody can't handle the night? That's not my problem. I'm just going to get on everyone's good side, I'm going to lie. You're right, our society doesn't have to be like a human one. Yeah, exactly. Just because there are more people kept alive doesn't mean it's a better society, just a bigger one. Randall shrugged, grimacing briefly. Why'd you live on the beach? Isn't it sunny? It's not as bad as you'd think, actually. I mean, you're not going to catch me getting a tan or anything, and I've got some good shades in my room. But I like being near the ocean. It's big and it doesn't give a fuck. How can you get more inspiring than that? Nah, but more seriously, this place is far enough from Hollywood and downtown LA that the Ascari don't really fuck with us. I want the clan to be able to hang out anywhere in the city, but... Hey, better to reign in hell than rule in heaven, right? Not that I'd call Hollywood heaven, though. Okay, about something else. About someone else. He doesn't like Heath. So sad. What do you think of Marcus? He's like, damn, I fucking love that guy. Yeah, but Heath? Fuck that guy. I haven't known him that long, but I've always looked up to the guy. He just doesn't give a fuck. Well, I guess he sells fucks at his shop, but that's a different story. I think that's not super accurate about Marcus, maybe. I haven't seen enough of him yet, and we haven't gotten further enough in for me to accurately say that, I guess. But I don't really believe that Randall has a proper view of him. I don't know. We'll see. He's helped me out before too. Never really know why he does a lot of the shit he does, but I don't know. I just like having him around. Do you know how old he is? Huh. You know, he never told me. I figured he'd be a few 100 years old, maybe more, but it's pretty hard to pin him down. Let me know if you ever figure it out. Ewan Heath. Angry face instantly. He's everything I hate, wrapped up in one baby-faced little package. Weak, can't think for himself, drools over his leader, does everything she asks. You know, these days I barely even see him as a person. Do you really hate Charisse that much? I hate what she stands for, the fact that she thinks her leadership is the only thing keeping LA's coven from eating itself alive. It pisses me off that she acts like vampires have to be protected from themselves, because she just doesn't understand that we're not human anymore. Queen bitch herself? No, I don't hate her. I sure as fuck won't be going golfing with her anytime soon, you can count on that. Right, and that's all for now. Ha, okay. I'm gonna go back to the group then, but you take care of yourself, Valkii. It's a scary world out there sometimes. With a faint chuckle, Randall nodded at me once, then turned to rejoin the conversation he'd left earlier. I'm gonna check my stats. See, them are like me now. A lot, actually. If I play my cards right, and if I try and get all the factions up, I don't know, does it have to be like over halfway for all the factions to like you? I think you have to do a lot of lying to people, like, yeah, sure, I'm on your side, you know? And that doesn't really come naturally to me, I guess. Like, it just... Usually I want to say what I actually think, but I guess, so I don't really think about it like that, but we'll see. And with a faint chuckle, Randall nodded at me once and then turned to rejoin the conversation he'd left earlier, and then we leave. Slipping out of the beach house, I made my way back across the sand. I could go see Heath, but it just depresses me. But I could visit Saturnalia and talk to people. Okay, let's visit Saturnalia, and then if there's sometimes Golgotha there. Deciding to pay Saturnalia a visit, I hopped in a taxi and to drive downtown. Actually, I think going back to the hotel might have been better because I think Ascari might hang out there and I can try and get their thing up a bit. Because if I have a lot of rep with people, then I can save it before I make a big decision. No spoilers, but I can save it at a certain point. And then just use that save file to do what I want, basically. To get every ending. Luckily, my driver knew where to find the bar, and we pulled up in front of its faded wooden sign a short while later. I should have thought of that. I'm going to do that on Randall's. I'm going to try and make everyone like me. The bar I stepped into was dim, slightly cramped, and flecked with low conversations. Something about it felt faded, like the sign outside. Maybe it was the peeling movie posters on the walls, or the lonely patrons sitting in corners, or the glittering lights that filtered through the windows. If I listened closely, I could almost hear the laughter of glamorous stars, the cheerful records they danced to, the echo of distant memories. I glanced around at the night's patrons and noticed two interesting groups standing in different spots. A cluster of younger-looking vampires by the bar, giggling and restlessly shifting in their seats, and some reserved, well-dressed Ascari murmuring in a quiet corner, looking like they didn't want to be disturbed. Heath was there too, lingering quietly behind the bar as he wiped out a glass. Okay, so I can't approach the Ascari, that's fine. Curious, I started wandering towards the young group of vampires nearby. As I got closer, I realized they were whispering and pointing at a man further down the bar. He was huddled off by himself, shifting uncomfortably as he nursed his drink. Hey, are you Valkii? Valkii? One of the vampires suddenly reached out to tap my arm, offering me a hopeful grin. Could you introduce us, please? She nodded towards the man who was slowly shrinking further away. This dude, I don't understand him. He's so not important. Yeah, could you please? We're from San Fran, but we've heard so much about him, and we know you're friends. We did our research. Two other vampires chimed in eagerly. I've never seen him before in my life. Why are you acting like you don't know? I think she's just testing us or something. Come on, let's go over. The vampire who tapped my arm now started to pull me impatiently towards the man. See, why does he get a sprite? It's so confusing. Who is he? Am I supposed to know? Because I don't. When we stepped up beside him, the man reluctantly turned to face me. Please, I think there's been a... Oh my god, he's talking to us. Marcus is talking to us. I think I'm gonna faint. The moment he opened his mouth, two of the vampires let out excited squeals. Yes, I am Marcus, but it's spelt with a C, not a. Can I have your autograph, please? How do you know Valkii? Did you sire her? Actually, we don't even. Is Valkii the only one who can melt your icy exterior? Ah. Why do you keep pretending you're not Marcus? We know who you are. Before I knew it, we were surrounded by the chattering group. They seemed completely convinced that this man, Marcus, was actually Marcus. Marcus threw me a plaintive look, all but wailing, please help me, with his eyes. Listen everyone, I know Marcus, and this man isn't Marcus. Oh man, we know what you guys are up to. Marcus is always pulling tricks on people. Yeah, you're not fooling us, but nice try. Hey, don't let him slip away. Their attention shifting away from me, the Marcus fan club swarmed Marcus like flies, clearly convinced he was the real deal. They pestered him with a constant stream of questions, asking about everything from his political views to whether he thought the Beatles' White Album was better than Abbey Road. The quiet fumbling replies he gave were very un-Marcus-like, but none of the vampires seemed to notice or care. Some of them shoved things into his hands to autograph, where he reluctantly etched an M followed by an ambiguous squiggle. Judging from Marcus's reactions, tonight wasn't the first time this kind of thing happened, and from the defeated look on his face, I figured it probably wouldn't be the last. Eventually, the group started trickling off, wandering back down the bar. They were apparently satisfied with catching a glimpse of Marcus in the wild, and I heard snippets of their delighted gushing as they walked away. Like a wilted plant, Marcus drooped back against the bar, visibly exhausted. You know, Los Angeles is a really charming place. I like it here. The atmosphere is fantastic. But as my luck would have it, I also share a name and house with the most infamous vampire in the city. He let out a resigned sigh, rubbing two fingers against his temple. It would be so nice to have a peaceful time at bars, enjoying my night like any other average Joe. Is that such an impossible dream? Maybe I should try going by Mark instead. After mumbling wistfully to himself for a few moments, Marcus glanced back to me, clearing his throat. Oh well, thanks for trying to clear things up anyway. I'll let my friends know you're not just out to make people's lives more difficult. Oh, so this helps me get rep with the Golgoth? I mean, I don't see it yet. Maybe it'll happen after the encounter. Have you ever met the real Marcus? No, never once in my life, which makes it worse somehow. He grumbled under his breath, but in the passive way of someone who wasn't up to fighting fate. From what I know, the real Marcus likes to pull pranks a lot, so every time I say I'm not Marcus, they just think I'm playing around. It's usually not that bad, just a little inconvenient, but then other times, with a quiet, flustered cough, Marcus stared very intently into his glass. You know the kind of shop Marcus runs, right? Well, sometimes his fans decide to give me gifts that match the store's aesthetic. I can deal with signing the occasional t-shirt, but when somebody shoves a cattail attached to a plug into my hands at the drugstore, things have gone a little too far. Maybe you could try and clear things up with the real Marcus? I've tried, but I can't get in contact with him. And you know, a part of me can't shake the suspicion that he's actually helping spread the fake identity. That sounds like something he might do, actually. As Marcus shared his lamentations with me, I spotted two Mavar coming from the bathroom hall nearby. The next moment, they froze, staring at us intently. Hey, is that... Holy crap, is that Marcus? Their eager gasps rang through the air. Lord have mercy. Like he'd just been shot from a cannon, Marcus turned and bolted for the exit, leaving his half-finished glass of blood behind. One of the Mavar ran after him, giggling delightedly. And just like that, I was left alone in the bar once more. Let me see if that did give me any fucking... It did. Okay. That's interesting. I didn't realize I would get any rep from that. Okay. Shall we talk to Heath? I feel bad leaving him out. I've talked to everyone else. Let's go talk to him. Oh, sorry, Heath. This will be the only time I talk to you. Oh. I stepped up to the bar, waiting to catch Heath's attention. He stayed lost in thought for a short while longer, his glazed eyes staring off at nowhere in particular, but soon enough our gazes finally met. Almost instantly, Heath broke into a smile, putting down the glass and stepping towards me. I hate this. Valkii, you came by after all, and it seems like you and Markus didn't run into any problems. I'm so glad. Oh, Heath, how have you been doing? I've been just fine, thank you, you fucking liar. No, Lassie. No, that's not completely true. I've been a little worried about you. I'm sure you're still adapting to our world, trying to understand all of its confusing people and parts. No matter how strong you are, it's hard not to feel overwhelmed sometimes. So if there's anything you want to ask me, Valkii, please do. As you can tell, I've obviously already looked at all of these. Well, I have a little skill in glamour. I don't remember what I just asked him. The Ascari ability to take on someone else's appearance. But I've never been able to use hypnosis. Maybe it's because I'm still young, or I just don't have the talent for it. He let out a small, self-deprecating chuckle. Like you, I didn't have a mentor when I was turned. Everything I've learned I had to teach myself, mostly. Glamour came to me quickly, but every time I use it, I get this strange feeling afterwards, so I don't practice it often. That's all there is. I don't think of my other powers very much. I prefer never to use them. He rubbed a finger along his cheek, gently shaking his head. Have you ever turned another vampire? Heath quickly shook his head, looking a little distressed at the very thought. No, never. I don't want to either. Having to take somebody's life and then pulling them into our world forever. I just couldn't. A small shudder ran through him. What helps you find comfort as a vampire? Other people. Being around other people, I think. Both humans and vampires. Seeing humans still living their happy lives here, that makes me feel warm, and seeing the people in our society, our version of normal, living out theirs. I just don't like being alone for too long. It makes me start to wonder what I really am, what we really are. But being around others makes me feel less different, calmer, I think. That's probably why I still run this bar. Is there meaning behind your necklace? Yeah, I used to be religious. I think I still am. It helps remind me that I'm not alone. His fingers drifted up to the cross, slightly tracing along the metal with a reverent touch. This necklace was a Christmas gift from my mother. I've always treasured it. But it doesn't have any meaning beyond that. I'm sorry if the story isn't as exciting as you hoped. He let out a faint laugh, his hand shifting back to his scarf. How do you normally feed? I drink from glasses as much as I can, but sometimes there are willing donors who come around. I just don't like to feed from them very often. It feels so inhuman. I see. Interesting. Do you have any other questions for me? Let's talk about someone else. You and Randall. He hates me. The only reason he ever comes into the bar is to spend time with other Mavar, and when he doesn't ignore me, he's giving me disgusted looks. We used to deal with each other a little better, but over time we grew further and further apart. The stronger Randall got, the more he seemed to hate me. I don't know if it's because of the war or because we came to understand each other's natures more, but we're just total opposites. Do you know anything about his past? Only that he grew up somewhere near Bakersfield and he worked in Hollywood before he was turned. That's what he says at least, but no one here knew him until he became a vampire. I don't think he likes to talk about it very much. What's your relationship with Markus? We've never really gotten along, Markus and me. His philosophy is just so dark and cynical. I'm sure you've already seen it for yourself. He and I aren't enemies, but I know he doesn't like me, and that makes it very uncomfortable for me to be around him. Is there a reason why he doesn't like you? He's never mentioned anything directly, if that's what you mean. Markus isn't outright abrasive like Randall usually is, but he's always a little cold to me. Charisse works with him sometimes though, so I deal with him when he's around. He attempted to put on a smile, but it turned out more like a grimace. What do you think of Charisse? Charisse is a very strong woman, one of the strongest I've ever met. His response was a little slow, words more cautious than normal. But sometimes I think her strength, the way she's so determined to make a safe, lawful society for us, is her biggest weakness. She focuses on the whole instead of the parts, the society instead of the individual people inside of it. The good of the many over the few, so she doesn't let herself get attached to people easily, or tries not to. And do you like working for her? I like working for a good cause. Every job can be frustrating at times. I tell myself that a lot these days. He let out a short laugh. Alright, well, I gotta go. I'm sorry. So soon, No, but really, thank you for coming to talk with me. Stay safe, Valkii. This is the last time we'll ever see each other. Well, it might not be the last time we see each other, but this is the last time I'm going to talk to him in the bar. It's just sad. Reaching to pull out a cigarette, Heath slowly turned away. Right, this should be the end of the night. I think I can only go to 3 places every time. Looks like it. I left the bar's quiet ambience, returning to the street. When I glanced towards the sky, I realized sunrise was on its way, so I decided to head back to my hotel room. It had been an interesting evening, though it was hard to believe my 6th night as a vampire was already ending. Yet here I was, steadily adapting to the new world around me, changing in ways I couldn't yet understand. Click. Oh no, not yet. Okay. I returned to my room feeling at least somewhat satisfied. There we go. There's the click. But as I flicked off the lights, settling into the cozy darkness of sleep, somewhere in my mind an uneasiness began to shift. I really have to try and get the Ascari to like me. This is ridiculous. What on earth are you thinking? Is this another one of your games? What was that? An angry, muffled voice slowly pulled me awake. I flicked on the light, blinking to clear my vision. That voice sounded like it belonged to Charisse, and she was right outside my door. Don't you understand how imperative it is for me to be there, for us to demonstrate strength? May I speak frankly, Charisse? Another voice. Marcus, of course. If you're so very eager to have a bullet in your skull, why not ease the process and draw a red crosshair on yourself? Because if you go there tonight, you'll be leaving with a JFK head dressing. There was a long pause. Now, let us speak to her directly instead of squabbling out here like savages. The next moment, I heard a soft click, and my door abruptly swung open. Fucking rude. Charisse and Marcus stepped inside, their gazes flickering towards me. I stared back at them from my bed where I was. Why is this an option? Sorry, I need to move, and my chair is squeaky a little bit. Resting in underwear. I still had on a little bit of fabric, which barely protected my dignity. At least I was mostly under the covers, although that didn't stop Charisse from giving me a dirty look. What? You wear pajamas? I doubt it. Well, they had barged into my room, so I couldn't be the one at fault here. Ah, good evening, Valkii. You certainly look comfortable. Well, stop acting like you like looking at that. I don't feel like you care. I don't feel like that's not important to you. Even if you run a sex shop, that's... Yeah, see? Marcus leered at me through his sunglasses, evidently unfazed by the situation. Oh, but I do hope you'll forgive our intrusion. You could have knocked. Could you maybe knock next time? You know how I am about the element of surprise. I always aim to keep you on your toes. I figured it was him who opened the door and not her. If you're quite done bantering. Charisse interrupted us testily, tapping one foot on the ground. Let's get straight to the point, shall we? After all, this matter is time-sensitive. I just received a phone call about an event happening tonight. She made a brisk circular motion with one hand, as if trying to hurry our conversation up. Randall's clan is holding a gathering, let's say, by the beach. Oh, it's by the beach this time, I guess because I'm not doing... on Heath's route, you go to his bar. They say it's... Oh, this is different, I think, as well. They say it's in tribute to a Mavar who recently lost her life in the fighting, as well as all the other vampires who've died fighting thus far. But more importantly, they announced that tonight is a temporary ceasefire on their end, and any Ascari or Golgotha are welcome to join the festivities. And Mavar died? Who was it? I know little about her, only that she was one of Randall's staunch admirers. Part of me wonders if they aren't merely using her death to push their own agenda. Pausing, Charisse shot a glance towards Marcus, her steel-grey eyes narrowing dubiously. Regardless, I had decided to attend the gathering myself with an armed guard, of course, hoping I might negotiate something with Randall and communicate my peaceful intentions to the clan. I need a drink. But Marcus insists that the two of you attend in my stead. I do indeed. Charisse's death stare seemed to bounce harmlessly off of Marcus, like a frisbee hitting a tank. Valkii has already survived one encounter with Randall, and from the sound of it, she came out on top. I myself am happy to vouch for her pluckiness and capacity for handling unexpected situations. His grin widened more deviously. Thus, it would be my great honor to bring her as my +1 to this fine soiree. I'd be happy to go on Charisse's behalf. I'm trying to ingratiate myself to her. ... Okay, she hated that. Fine. Charisse looked more troubled than pleased by my reply. Marvelous. Let me... Did that do anything? You know what? That might have done something. I'm not sure, though. I could just be seeing things. I just thought it was a little bit more down than that. No doubt Charisse is immensely grateful for your selfless offer. I would appreciate if you didn't play these games with me, Marcus. Cutting in sharply, Charisse adjusted her glasses, her posture rigid and defensive. We both know that your sole loyalty in all of this is to yourself. Any concern you have for my safety is just another factor in your grand scheme, whatever that may be. Her tone was prickly, with subtle differences from the school-teacher voice she often used with me. Regardless if I were to confirm or deny such a thing, history has proven that even an armed guard won't protect you from a, well, executed assassination. He really likes bringing up the Kennedy assassination. He shrugged, his own voice remarkably casual. I know your desire for a truce may be clouding your judgment, but you are, dare I say, nearly acting emotional about it all. For a moment, I thought Charisse might fly into a rage, whirling around to shout in Marcus's face. It felt like Marcus was deliberately provoking her, prodding a bear with a stick. I suppose there is a fragment of truth in what you say, but it seemed his gamble wasn't going to end in him getting mauled. Nonetheless, I still... Wonderful! Let us proceed outside then, Valkii. Well, after you garb yourself in something a little warmer, maybe. Why? This is my party outfit. Just what kind of parties do you attend, sister? More importantly, why are my invitations getting lost in the mail? With a defeated sigh, Charisse docked me some reputation points and shook her head, a hint of confusion in her scowl. I'll never be able to decipher you, Marcus. You, of all people, willingly heading out to a place swarming with Mavar. I suppose you two will have an easier time gathering information, and there is a chance that they'll be less aggressive towards Valkii than any of us. But make sure that you leave a favourable impression, and if you can, convey to Randall that we must attempt another meeting. No doubt matters will play out that way. Marcus's eyes flicked away from Charisse, glinting at me through his sunglasses. Then, for the matter of transportation. I will arrange for a car other than my own, with a trained driver who will kindly escort you to the beach. Are you feeling all right, my queen? You're emphasizing your words in an awfully bizarre fashion. Lost for a reply, Charisse just pinched the bridge of her nose. I guess she knows we stole her car. With that, they left the room together, finally letting me get dressed. Once I was ready, I'm just trying to wonder what Marcus would say if I wore pajamas. I feel like his reaction would be almost the same if I decided the nude one, but I feel like his pajamas would have almost been funnier. Maybe. Once I was ready, Marcus led me outside and we climbed into the car that had been carefully prepared for us. After last time, Charisse was obviously taking no chances. We sped off towards the beach, gliding past the tourists and partygoers on their way to clubs. Marcus chatted warmly with me for most of the ride, bouncing through his usual wry remarks. Oh, that's right. He suddenly paused mid-conversation, a smirk flitting across his lips. This is your second visit in a row to Santa Monica, yes? I wonder how eventful it will be compared to yesterday. You know about David? After smelling a Strix that suddenly appeared in the adjacent room to yours, I was able to put two and two together, yes. I myself couldn't handle the responsibility of having a blood pet, nor would I want one to begin with. I figured. But I don't particularly care where you stick your fangs. He's gonna clap back at me on this one, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It wasn't my fault that he followed me. I thought he'd forget. Considering how rare Strixes are, you must have exceptional luck of the good or bad variety to encounter one so soon. But I suppose you're just the type who attracts those strange turns of fate, being a strange turn of fate yourself. Okay, no. See, he's always surprising me, actually. Whenever I think he's gonna clap back at me and, like, make me feel stupid, he doesn't. But then, on the times where I think oh, is that saying something? I'm like, on the times I tell him what I think he might want to hear, he claps back at me. Ooh, that's so weird. Okay, I'm trying not to think about that too much. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Relaxing back against his seat, Marcus let out a faint chuckle, shaking his head. For whatever reason, something about his smile seemed a little too smug. No. I wish I got more visions, you know? Like, I wish my powers were more obvious, but, like, I feel like even when I was an Ascari, like, the powers were just, like, I didn't get to use them that much. I don't even actually thinking about it. When I went to the sewer, I think before when I talked to the man, I had to hypnotize him to get information out of him. Ah, okay. A short while later, we arrived in Santa Monica. The car dropped us off near the beach, eagerly taking off as soon as the doors had closed. I could tell the Ascari driver was antsy, probably from being in Mavar territory. Marcus led the way, humming lightly under his breath as he strolled along the shore. It was a clear, beautiful night, and the moon's rays cast an ethereal shine over the cresting waves. But the sound of chattering and laughter carried over the ocean's steady crashes. Not far down the beach, I saw a sizable group hanging around the Mavar house. Most of them seemed to be from Randall's clan, and I recognized a few faces. There were several others who stuck out, though, probably Ascari or Golgotha, who'd stopped by out of curiosity. Ah, isn't it so delightfully heartwarming? Marcus sighed, his voice entirely insincere. The three houses finding common ground to make peace over. Why, it's almost as if they prize our species' survival more than meaningless rhetoric. I doubt anyone really wants to fight this war. On the He did it again. He's about to make me feel stupid. Oh, on the contrary, I believe they need it. Without petty causes to squabble about, their eternal lives would be so horribly mundane. You think the war is a petty cause? Of course it is. Vampires have the capacity to be all-powerful creatures. For a vampire to fulfill their every desire, they need only hone their strength and ambition. You cannot truly restrain the will of the strong. Instead, they frame Charisse as the mighty oppressor, and she frames them as the herd that must be protected from itself. And all of them spectacularly miss the point. Right as Marcus finished speaking, we came to a stop just outside the loud gathering. The decorations seemed halfway between a memorial service and a party. Pictures and trinkets were everywhere on the sand, right next to boomboxes and glasses full of blood. From the laughter and dancing, it looked like most everyone was having a good time. But a subtle tension still weighed in the air, looming over everything like a distant storm cloud. I wonder if they have hors d'oeuvres. I don't really know how to say that. As he stroked his chin thoughtfully, peering around at the tables, I noticed a sudden rush of whispers running through the crowd. Almost everyone shot a glance towards Marcus, some of them terrified, some hateful, others in admiration and awe. But he seemed to be completely ignoring all of their stares, either consciously or out of habit. Maybe we should go find those hors d'oeuvres. I do hope they have blood pasta. I'm simply dying for a change of pace. Oh, look who it is. Randall? A coy... maybe not Randall. Would Randall be coy? A coy, cheerful voice suddenly rang out over the chatter. Ah. Alusha, whatever her name is. The next moment, a familiar-looking woman pushed out of the crowd, hurrying up to us. I instantly remembered her, the same girl I'd passed outside of Marcus's shop. Seems you've got a friend too. Fancy that. And here I thought you'd sworn off friends for a while after that little incident with the two fangirls and the naked Japanese man. Her airy words carried a faint British accent with them. Oh my god, there's a cat. Looks like a Siamese. Now, you know we don't discuss that incident in polite company, Alusha. Marcus replied warmly, his eyes lighting up with fondness as they settled on her face. I suppose that's fair. Fingers crossed this one works out better for you than the last. Flashing us a mischievous smirk, the girl fluffed her striking hair with one hand. Well? Introduce us already, Marcus. Patience, child, I was getting there. May I present to you, Valkii, the latest addition to our LA coven and my newfound companion. Marcus placed his palm lightly on my head, somewhere in between a ceremonious gesture and an affectionate one. But beware, she's a Golgotha, so you may want to stash your secrets somewhere safe. Oh really? I'll make note of that. She laughed impishly, her eyes flicking over me with bold curiosity. Well, Valkii, you can call me Alusha. Your next best friend, foe, lover, or maybe a little bit of each. Pleased to meet you, off a hand. Oh my, what manners. No wonder Marcus finds you charming. As she grinned happily, my eyes fell to her mouth, where I couldn't see any fangs. Lots of vampires were probably able to hide them, but when I focused on her scent through the crowd, I realized it didn't belong to a vampire. You're not wearing a disguise, are you? A disguise? You mean you think I'm some kind of closeted vampire? No, I'm quite human. The only human here, I think. Came to pay my respects and all that. That's right. Marcus nodded, observing Alicia with a raised brow. The deceased Mavar was your mistress, wasn't she? Yes, unfortunately. Alicia didn't look overly heartbroken, but her gaze flicked wistfully away for a moment. Jackie liked me, her favourite little blood pet, a lot more than I liked her. Still, at least I knew she wouldn't drain me dry. And a fix is a fix. She shrugged, absently trailing a finger along her neck. So it is. Perhaps it's almost for the best that she... This shit can't keep happening. Yeah, and if Queen Bitch would just give us what we're asking for, it wouldn't keep happening. As two voices suddenly yelled out somewhere, a hush ran over the crowd. This is supposed to be a neutral event? Shut up. Marcus glanced towards the source of the commotion, craning his neck slightly. How can she be so fucking evil? How many people gotta be killed before she finally gets it? Murmurs of agreement slowly rose up from the Mavar. The rest of us already know we're all equal, but someone's gotta get it through her thick skull, huh? Someone else chimed in aggressively, rousing a few cheers in response. Yeah! Why don't we tie her up, leave her in the sun? Isn't that what we all want? Yeah! We'll fucking do it! All the fucking fascists deserve to die. Oh my god, they're so like... Anarchy in the USA. The crowd was quickly getting frenzied, swarming like a hive and pushing each other excitedly. The few Iskari and Golgotha I saw were looking increasingly worried, trying to edge their way out of the loud mass. This is just like silly. Like... It's just silly. This is supposed to be neutral. Like, if you're gonna have a funeral and make it neutral ground for the night or whatever, be like, oh, it's a ceasefire. I mean, it's so stupid, isn't it, really? Thinking about it. Having a funeral where, like, a casualty of war... of the war has, like, it's for the casualty of war. Like, people are gonna get upset. There's no way people are gonna be able to stay neutral. I don't know. And people like you are making it fucking worse. A short red-haired man aggressively grabbed Marcus's arm, shouting into his face, pretending you're above it all. You don't give a shit about the ones who suffer because it doesn't affect your little world, does it? You're pretty fucking lucky, aren't you? Marcus stared down at the angry Mavar, listening silently. His expression seemed almost emotionless, but there was something distinctly wary in his eyes. Here we go. It's nothing he's unused to, I'm afraid. Alicia murmured beside me, letting out a rueful sigh. Seems like it always happens when I see him out and about these days. No wonder he's always tucked away in his shop, hmm? Why do they get so angry at him? A number of reasons, probably. He's helped out all three leaders at some point, probably at the same time, so quite a few people mistrust him. They think he's not taking the war seriously, and of course, yelling loudly is just bound to change his mind. She rolled her eyes, her brows faintly knitting in frustration. Over her shoulder, I could see the Mavar was still screaming at Marcus, but now the crowd had gotten so worked up that I couldn't even pick out any specific words. Now is probably not the best time to mention this, but if you have a moment, darling. When I felt a small pat on my shoulder, I glanced back at Alicia. Sorry if I'm jumping to conclusions here, it's just the thing is... You're the first person I've seen with him in ages. She bit her lip for a moment, but not hard enough to contain a smirk. So if there's something fuzzy forming between you two, please don't think I'm some kind of love rival, alright? Just nipping it in the bud, rather not have to deal with a nasty confrontation for no reason. I prefer to get my fix of drama from a safe distance. Really? You mean you've never... With Marcus? Oh heavens no. She shook her head, shuddering lightly. That would be like getting with my own father, and I've got no Electra complex to speak of, at least as far as I know. I didn't really take him as the fatherly type. Alright, maybe not quite fatherly. What's the right phrase? Brotherly, maybe? Older cousinly? Well, whichever family term it is, we're not in Alabama, so don't go thinking we're pining for each other. Alicia came to a pause, flashing me a conspiratorial wink. She's nice. Like, I didn't get to see this side of her. The first time I met her was somewhere else, but she's nice. She's nice. She's like, hey, don't worry. I'm not in it to steal your dude. No, he's not my dude. She started leaning towards my ear to whisper something, her eyes flicking furtively? I'm forgetting how to read. Around us when... Whoa, cool it. You can't shout in this guy's face like that. Don't you know who you're talking to? A tall figure stepped out of the crowd beside us, frowning down at the Mavar by Marcus. That's just weird. Again. I don't know why Randall idolizes him so much, I guess. Okay. Shout all you want, but not at Marcus, for Christ's sake. Go on, get out of here, and I've gone way overboard, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye.